So we're going to look at the 7th grade guide for the inequality quiz. Um, most of the stuff, if you can do the equation stuff, most of the inequality stuff is the exact same procedure except for one minor rule. And that minor rule is if you ever divide or multiply by a negative number when solving an inequality, all you have to do is flip the direction of the sign. That's it. So if it's a bigger than sign, you change it to a less than sign. If it's a less than sign, you change it to a bigger than sign. That's basically all there is to it. But that only happens if you divide or multiply by a negative number in the course of solving the inequality. Other than that, it's the exact same rules for an equation. So look at number 1 here. Again, we can still draw a line down the middle if you want. Again, goal is to get x by itself. So let's start by moving this plus 9. So I subtract 9. Now I'm not going to flip here because subtracting is not multiplying or dividing by negative. So subtracting is okay. You keep the sign the same way. Nothing happens. So we're going to do 24 minus 9, which gives us 15, is less than 3x. Then we get rid of the 3 times x by dividing. And again, because I'm dividing by a positive number, it's okay. And I get 5 is less than x, which would be my answer. 5 less than x. Number 2, again, start the same way. Subtract 1, subtract 1. You get 82 is bigger than negative 7x. And then in this case, I am going to divide. I'm going to divide by negative 7. And because I'm dividing by a negative, that's going to cause my middle sign to flip the direction. So it's going to open this way. And I'm going to have x bigger than negative 82 sevenths, which is some decimal number. I'm just going to leave it as a big fraction and have this as my answer. So again, you only flip if you're dividing or multiplying by a negative. In this case, I divided by a negative 7, so I move it by flipping the sign. For number 3, same deal. Subtract 2 first to get rid of it. 49 is bigger than negative 7x. Then we divide by a negative 7, and because I'm dividing by a negative number, once again, my sign is going to flip, and it's going to look like this. So remember, this only happens when you divide or multiply by a negative, which I did here, so that's why I flipped the sign. Make that a little bit better. So the sign is now pointing this way towards the variable, the open-end at least. For fractions, again, no big difference. Our 1/2 x minus 5 is less than or equal to negative 10, so get rid of the minus 5 by adding. Whoops, need to add, not add 5, not add 2. So add 5 there. And again, we're not dividing or multiplying by a negative, so we can just keep the sign the same for now. So less than or equal to negative 5. And then to get rid of the 1/2, we can either divide by 1/2, or we can flip the fraction and actually multiply by 2, because the opposite of taking 1/2 of something is doubling something. So you're still doing the opposite. The opposite of 1/2 is double, so I times it by 2, and these go away. Times this side by 2 as well, and I get x. Now, because I'm multiplying, but by a positive number, the sign stays the same, and I just get this, x less than or equal to negative 10. So once again, you don't flip the sign if you multiply or divide unless it's by a negative number. Down here, again, same inequalities, just different numbers. We're going to start by adding 7 to get rid of that negative 7. Now again, like with equations, if this zeroes out, that's okay. Keep it as 0 and keep the side still there. Don't suddenly forget the side because you didn't write down the 0. Then to get x by itself, I divide by negative 3. Now even though I'm dividing it to a 0, I am still dividing by a negative, so my sign has to flip, and then my answer would look like this. So even if the number itself doesn't become negative, the act of dividing or multiplying by a negative necessitates that you flip the sign. And then the same deal for 6. So subtract 5, you get 4x is less than or equal to negative 32. Divide by 4, divide by 4. Now, even though 32 is negative, I'm not dividing by it. I'm dividing by a positive 4, so my sign stays the way it is, and I get negative 8. So again, the number you're dividing to doesn't matter. It's what you're dividing by. In this case, by a positive 4. So the sign stays as it is. On the back, we have a few word problems. The first one is sort of straightforward. 7 decreased by twice a number is no more than 35. So let's write that out here. 7 decreased by twice a number, so we'll say 2n, is no more than 35. So this is no more than 35. So that means it can be less than 35. It can be equal to 35. It just can't be more than 35. So 35 has to be bigger than or equal to this mess over here. So you have to kind of build these very carefully. Think about what side should be the bigger side, and should it be equal to, or should it just be bigger than or less than? In this case, this side is no more than, which means it can be less than the side. It can be less than 35, and it can be equal to, because no more than means you can be equal to. It just can't be bigger than, so it has to be less than or equal to. And then you solve it like we did on the front side. Subtract 7, you get negative 2n there. Keep the sign in the middle for now. And then you do 35 minus 7, which will give you 28. Sorry, had a brain fart there. And then we're going to divide by negative 2. Now, because I am dividing by a negative number here, my sign is going to flip, and I'm going to get negative 14. So again, watch out for the decrease by or less than or stuff like that, because those negatives are going to be important to know whether you're going to flip your sign or not. The next one's a little bit more contextual. So it costs this much a week to stay operational, $8 per animal. They want to keep the cost at no more than 2,500. How many animals could they care for? All right, well, let's get this first part set up. It costs $750 a week, so $750, it's a flat rate, plus $8 per animal. We'll put A for animal. And this is their cost. So this right here represents their cost. That's their dollar amount. And they want this dollar amount to be no more than 2,500. So again, ask yourself, can we be equal to 2,500? Yeah. Can we be less than 2,500? Yeah. We just can't be bigger than 2,500. So 2,500 has to be bigger than or equal to this amount here. Or put another way, this amount here has to be less than or equal to 2,500. So how many animals, what A, would make this work so it always remains less than or equal to 2,500? Well, let's do some subtraction here. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of that 750. So we're going to subtract 750 from both sides. So minus 750, minus 750. And we get 8A is less than or equal to 1750. And then just like always, we're going to divide by the 8 because it's being multiplied. And then, so divide by 8, divide by 8. Now, because it is a positive 8, once again, we do not flip the sign. We're going to keep the sign as it is because the 8's not negative, it's a positive, so we don't flip. Again, don't overuse that idea there. So A is less than or equal to 218.75. So that's roughly about, this little squiggly here means about 218. If they keep it at 218 animals, then they should have enough to stay operational. If they go above 218, then their costs are going to go above 2,500, and they're not going to be able to sustain themselves anymore. So again, the only trick between these and equations is simply when you flip the sign, and that's when you're dividing or multiplying by a negative. If you can remember that rule there, then this is no different than solving equations. So that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day.